this. Good morning, Brian.
Hi, Hayley.
How are you doing today and this
You're
week?
frozen on my screen.
I hope not. Long.
I'm feeling totally unfrozen. For some reason, Ray's been away for a couple of weeks in recovery. He's not at all, we talked about years ago, people would be embarrassed to say such thing. I am so proud of him that he went into recovery. And you've been a great help to him with chronic back pain. And so he was on a lot of opioids, and he was supplementing with alcohol, which he shouldn't have done. So he really worked hard at coming to an action plan. And so he ended up going into a hospital, and I ran the show for 2 weeks. Lincoln was a little confused, but he got into the rhythm of it. And Ray came home and Lincoln went crazy, just so happy to see him.
Amazing.
But yeah, for some reason, on the eve of him coming home, everything sort of came together for me. And I can't give you an explanation of why. I asked Ray if he gave me an extra pill or something.
Happy pill.
Maybe, but I came to the very peaceful, joyful acceptance that this home is the end. This is, unless we end up in a nursing home, this is our last house together, last yard. And I love it. I love the furnishings that we've collected over the years, the things that I kept from, the downsizing. I love my relationship. I love the dog. I did say to Ray, though, that I want to live with more joy. That I tend to be a worrier and a worker. So I worry about what's not done, and I fill my day with things that need to be done, and it never ends. I keep thinking, well, if I just do this, then I can relax. Well, I do it. I sit down, I realize, oh, you forgot to wash the dog's bowl, or the dog needs water, get up. And, you go, and you think the only way that's going to stop is if you stop and say, okay, isn't everything beautiful? Isn't it great? What do you think about that, Hayley?
It absolutely resonates with me. And I feel like, we started talking earlier before we hit record about how the last 2 weeks have been irregular, even considering the irregularity of 2020 and 2021. And it has been this thing where it's really being focused on what is really important here and what it is that I really want. And I have that same thing where I'm just busy, but then at the end of the day, I'm like, what were you busy doing? And it has been really slowing down and listening to the birds. In the mornings, the birds are so sweet. And there's a few new birds on different seasons. And I feel like there's a new season of birds coming in.
Great.
And listening to those birds and sort of really stopping myself, like, no, you're going to sit and you're going to listen to this bird and you're going to find joy right now. So it very much resonates with me. But on the other side of that has been this resonation of what is the definition of slowing down? Do we need to stop and halt everything to be able to find joy in it? And for me, I think that's been a bit of it has been helpful in the beginning to create the practice and to find the muscle memory. But now it's almost like this leap of faith into absolute joy, where it is find the joy even when you're moving really quickly.
And Hayley, you gave the example of the bird, and I had yesterday an example of a frangipani blossom up in the sky on the top of one of our trees, and it was glorious. And I said, stop what you're doing, look at it,
Be with it.
And I thought, oh, get the camera so you can share it with everyone. which is fun to do. But I thought, oh, this is your moment. Enjoy it, right? Okay, so there are ways to experience joy by stopping and stop, look, and listen. Do you ever hear that when you were little, before you cross the street? Use your eyes, use your ears, and then you use your feet. Did you hear that in Zimbabwe?
It was stop, look left, look right, listen, go.
Okay, well, we had this nursery rhyme when we were little, and kids all over the country had it. And I thought, what an amazing thing that we share these, silly little experiences. But anyway, so stop, look, and listen. And then the other thing, which you were segueing into, is that living with joy. That's what I want some more help with. Is yesterday or Tuesday, I listened to August Gold, whose name you know from me, a really good Tao teacher. And I would consider one of my major mentors. She talked about the voice, not intuition, but the voice that is constantly in our head. The unwanted roommate who criticizes and challenges everything. And that we need to recognize it and realize it's not us. It's not God. It's not our guardian angel. It's this collective voice from generations that blanketed us in our birth, right? Of judgments. Oh, she'd be prettier if, she should smile more. And actually men have taken it upon themselves to tell women that, you'd be prettier if you smiled more. Oh, I'm sorry, I was just walking on my way to the grocery store. Why did you need to tell me that? Well, because I'm a man and I'm a judge of what's pretty. So tie the two together for me. The voice that is not us, and living as much as possible daily in joy.
I think the first question that I have, based on what you said, was, if it's not us and it's not God, yet this entire world is created from God, who is it then?
Well, okay, so the entire world is created, yes. Okay, so this is academic, right? So people with their free choice, free will, have created things like racism, right? Racism is a human construct. Right? It's not from God, is it? I would say,
if it's not, then it has to come from somewhere. Where's it coming from? Are we saying then that humans are different from God?
No, but humans have the capacity to not embrace what's good, or getting vaccinated. Some people are just stubborn about it. Some people may have, in their mind, legitimate reasons. Others are just, you're not going to tell me what to do. Right? Well, that's a choice. And that choice is, impacts me and you, right? Impacts them. And so I think what she's saying is that the voice that we hear that's constantly critical of us and others is an echo that we pick up when we're born, that's not really part of our own DNA, and that we absorb it. What do you think about that? And if she was on the line, she'd say, oh my God, I didn't say anything close to that.
But I think it's I love that we're talking about this. For me, and what I believe in, and what is helping and guiding me towards being in that constant state of joy, regardless of how fast I'm moving, has been embracing all of me and really sitting with the question, if it is not me, then who is it? If it is not God, then who is it? And that has helped me to understand that it's still me. That voice in my head is still me. It has been trained, and again, this is my belief. It has been trained throughout the series of my life. And if you believe in other lifetimes and soul lineage, ancestral lineage, a lot goes into that voice that is truly of love, is just trying to protect. And the concept of protection has got so deeply ingrained in fear that it's now holding me back and holding me separate from that joy that I truly feel, and that joy that I can say, this is God-given joy. So for me to be able to create now a relationship with that side and have a conversation, and first of all say thank you to it for loving me so much that it created such an intense shield of protection. But now I don't want that kind of protection. I want the protection of joy. That allows me to have that awareness of that voice every time it's coming up, to be like, oh, I hear this voice. I know what it's trying to do. It's love, but it's not the way that I'm choosing to live anymore. That allows me to now embrace it and start retraining it. So that voice is now saying, hey, remember to be in joy right now. Hey, remember we're doing joy. So that is, and again, last time we spoke, I was talking about sort of sitting with God and having these conversations with God. And I had asked the question to God, what makes you giggle with glee? And his response to me was, every time you sit with me, you sit next to me. So for me, it's retraining that voice to choose a different option, rather than let's brace and go into deep protection and defensive, into, hey, remembering we want joy. Remember, we want to sit with God. Come sit with God. So I do believe that voice is 100% part of us. I do believe it, if you go in the Jungian theory, it's the shadow. And it is about integrating the shadow and bringing light into the shadow, that we can create a better sense of balance.
Hayley, if two people sit with God on their own, will they get the same message and experience?
I think that the words may be different. The experience and the heart experience will be the same, because it's divine truth.
I agree with you about that. If there is such a thing as God, that what we are really talking about is the ultimate source of all things, whose characteristics are unlimited, but mostly include love. Okay, so if you're going to sit with that source, I would think you'd have the same message come through, but people read the same book and have totally different experiences with it. Mm-hmm. Right? I loved it. I hated it. Oh, all right. So why did you hate it? Why did you love it? There has to be something it touched in you that created those reactions, even if it's prior judgments you picked up from your mom or whatever. So I'm confounded with how people sincerely, on totally different ends of the political social spectrum, come away from conversations with God with totally different messages. How is that? How
then are they actually sitting with God, or are they sitting with something different?
Well, that you sit with God, right? You make an effort, as do I. Right? I don't take as much time, I don't think, as you do, but I talk to God all day long. I have to accept that there are people who come from conservative religious backgrounds that sit with God. They do. We can't say that all evangelicals, Roman Catholics, Mormons, Southern Baptists, in all of those groups, there's not one person who authentically sits with God. And if they do, how can they come away feeling about me as a gay person differently than God feels about me, which is joy and pride.
They're sitting with God. And in my, I haven't spoken to these people, but I would love to speak. This is part of why I want to stay open to speaking to everybody and not seeing people for labels and stereotypes, is let's have a conversation. Tell me about your experience of sitting with God. And every time I've had that, every single time, and I very clearly choose those words, it's absolutely every single time I've had a conversation with somebody that says, my God says this. And I've asked them about the experience, like, okay, tell me how you sat with your God. Tell me what your God was saying. What was the question? Or what was God saying to you? And in every single one of those cases, they've immediately diverted to somebody, some human quote. Well, Father so-so says this. This is how it should be done. I'm like, then you're not listening to God. You're listening to another human's interpretation of a concept. And I think that's when the interpretations are always biased. If we're not taking the time to really have that conversation and get to the root of who am I and who is God, what is God and what is the message of God, then everything is going to be biased based on our experiences. Everything is going to be biased based on that voice that so deeply wants to protect us. When we're in a space of fear, we will only listen to the things that keep us in protection.
Yes, and justify the fear.
And justify the fear.
Yeah, if you're sitting in fear and you do everything you can to protect yourself, one of the things you're doing to protect yourself is saying that the fear is real, that it has real causes that you have good reason to be afraid.
Yeah.
Instead of you've created this fear.
You created a story and now you perpetuate a story to keep yourself and say you're right.
Uh-huh.
And I want to say, like, in that conversation that I've had with people who say, my God says this, it's not that I'm always perpetually right and I'm moving into a self-righteous place. It is a true belief, and it is something that I have found amongst other people that get to that root message of God, that love message of God. Everybody I've spoken to will say that you just know. It's nothing that you can explain. It's nothing that you can say, it's in this specific voice, or God was wearing this specific thing. It's just a sense of knowing. It's a sense of energy. You can't explain it. So to those people that are saying they're sitting with God and can put such detail to it, I think that's a contradiction to what other people are experiencing when they're sitting with the core truth of it.
When you ask people this, who you feel are not really sitting with God, from your observation, your ability to see and feel, what's the response to you when you tell them you weren't sitting with God?
A lot of anger.
They hang up and leave you?
A lot of anger.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of, you're being self-righteous, or who do you think you are? And again, the God that I sit with and the God that I have inquired about, that's not love. That is not compassion. If you feel so threatened by somebody else telling you questioning your belief system, that's about your belief system. It's not about God.
Mm-hmm.
That's
are these people
that shield of fear around you.
Are these people who have paid you to talk to them?
Some that are paid, but honestly, some are friends. Some are people that I have considered to be mentors for, gosh, almost 20 years now.
And when you have that conversation and they get angry at you, is that the end of the friendship?
Not for me. Not for me.
Yeah.
For me, it's always again, if I'm going to be consistent and say, this is my God, that is love, then I understand it. I understand that we're all going through something right now that is really asking us to question the truth. So if people are going to be riled about that and upset about it and threatened or intimidated by it, I mean, good.
Mhm.
Good. Perhaps that will allow you to really get down to that question of who am I? And if at that point you come back and be like, hey, what you said really, really annoyed me. Can we dig into that further? Absolutely, I'll have that conversation.
Mhm.
Absolutely, I'll have that conversation. It's not just that I'm teaching or that I'm preaching. I also get to learn and I get to have a much clearer path to God in that conversation too. And it hasn't just been people that I've been known for a while. You know, it happened with somebody that I met just 2 weeks ago, where I was introduced to them and I was just like, whoa, that's not really God. That's a whole lot of anger. And rather than, us looking and saying, I'm angry and there's something I can do about this anger, we'd rather say, no, my anger is justified. God says I can have it.
Hayley, if you were going to describe the experience, an authentic experience of sitting with God, okay, what are the characteristics that someone could say, oh, I'm feeling that. I see what she's saying. How would you describe the
I'm not
experience?
going to describe what I think God looks like or that.
No,
I
no.
describe how it feels with me. So when I sit
Yeah.
with God, I'm like, this is God energy now. The peace. It's an unexplained peace in terms of quiet, silence. That voice is quiet. That voice is consumed by the peace. It doesn't even want to say anything. My heart is at peace. So all of the constructs and biases on the past, and this is what you have to do, and don't forget to wash out the dog bowl, all just shh. And it is the peace that passeth all understanding.
Okay. So you're in this moment. Are you asking for guidance or are you looking for respite?
I'm looking, I don't know. There are moments, sometimes I'll ask for guidance, but majority of the time is I want to allow that peace to start at my core and just spread out so that when I get up, I'm still holding on to some of that peace. So I try not to ask God things unless something's really going on. Most of the time, it's just let me sit in this space, let me sit with God and just be in that peace, in that God energy, so that I can remind myself and every cell of my being, this is what it means to be at peace. So it's almost like creating a muscle memory. It's not necessarily respite because I'm not retreating from the world. I'm just coming truly into the world, if that makes sense.
Well, I think we're in some ways, the way we find that peace is to exit the world. That's what I think churches were all about. That people, you walk down Fifth Avenue in New York City. If the horns and the hustle and bustle and becomes too much, you can slip into, St. Timothy's church or St. Patrick's, which I don't particularly find comforting, but you can go someplace that is designed to create a welcoming quiet where you can do the work that you want. So, some people say, oh, I want to be a monk. I want to go to a monastery and spend the rest of my life at a convent, or that's where I'll find God. And there are some people who, do. Not everyone who does, not everyone who goes, finds God. Any more than they might if they were in New York City. But I think for me, what happens is that I find myself, my true self, my higher angel, my better vibration, that when I meditate, I'm consciously removing myself from one vibration, right? With the expectation of ascending, using that, up and down metaphor, to a higher vibration, one that's more reflective of God and me, which is the same. Correct?
I agree with you. And going to that idea of the churches and being able to go into the churches to connect into a sense of that peace illustrates the tool that churches were. I don't think that church is the only place you can get that. I think the churches are, hey, if you're having a tough day or you can't connect into this yourself, come sit here and connect in. And then when you leave, you have that stronger sense and you're leaving with it. The idea of exiting the world and the chaos and the noise to come back and find yourself and ascend into that higher vibration, to me means that I'm then back in the world, but I'm back in the world as truly me. And then I can listen to the noise in joy, and I can listen to all of that honking and the jackhammers and be like, oh wow, this is actually a symphony. Like if you put it all together, it's this wonderful symphony.
Because you're choosing, you're empowered to make a choice on how you experience every little thing.
Yeah.
From the frangipani blossom to the bird song, but you're doing it at a higher level of consciousness. Now that may not last. You may think, I've got it.
I've got it. And then you stand up and
oh my God, I'm so happy I don't have to do anything more. It, like batteries, it lasts a while and then they need to be recharged.
They need to be recharged. And I think that's where the training of that voice is your charger on the go. That voice, when it feels like, okay, I sat for 10 minutes, I got into that piece, I'm feeling really good. And then 10 minutes later, you get a text message or you get a call and your day that you planned and was so excited about now is not the day that you planned it.
Yeah.
Having that voice to be like, okay, this kind of sucks, but remember, we're supposed to be seeing everything in joy now.
Yeah.
Take a breath, practice what you preach, take a breath, come back to yourself. Now let's try this again.
And how do you stop it from you coming across as a Pollyanna to others who can't wait for you to leave the room because you're giving them a toothache?
Yeah. And I think I wanted to sort of mention this whole concept of positive psychology, where it's almost an escapism, where you just literally dig your head in the sand. You're like, everything's fine, everything's fine.
And that's what some people, when I talk about God, that's what they think I'm doing.
That's what I agree.
In their mind, anybody who talks about God is playing silly games and not dealing with the reality and the problems that we're faced to solve.
That really is me. And this has been a big part of this year, is knowing myself and being able to say that I know that what I'm doing and how I'm doing it is 100% participating in life. I am very well aware of everything that's going on. However, I choose to ascend and get a bigger perspective, a higher perspective of what's going on. So it's not that I'm shutting it off and being Pollyanna and just being like, everything in my little world is great.
Mhm.
I'm saying this isn't so great right now. Show me the bigger picture here. Show me how this fits into a bigger scheme of things so that I can see how I can be of greatest impact.
Mhm.
And every time, you know, the reason why I do it all the time is because it always works out. And, you know, the opposite is true. Every time I just solely focus on something and like, oh my God, this is so awful. And I have to do something here, but I don't know what to do. And I just get myself in a stew. The outcome's the same.
Uh-huh.
I'm paralyzed with fear. I'm not nice to be around. I can't figure things out. And now I'm a contradiction. So it's not that, you know, positive psychology, I think, is one thing, but when you're truly wanting to understand who am I and what is all of this, it is an ascension. It is a rising above, not because I'm better, but rising above, let me see what's going on here.
Well,
And
you're not saying when you rise above, you don't even go there that you're better than others. What you're better than you were before you started to think about it.
yeah. And when you look at, like, even in the course of history and humanity, every battle has been around who's got the higher ground, because that's how important the higher ground is. If you're on the higher ground, you have a much better view of what's going on below you. That's really what
for me, yeah, I use the imagery of like a bird going higher and higher and looking down, you know. So, you know, right now I'm in a room in a house in Wilton Manors, you know, but I'm talking to this woman who's in Mexico, right? And so, wow, that's, you have to go pretty high to see, you know, at least the physical distance, right? But when I go higher, as not a judge, but as an observer, it helps me find my place in it all. And it gives me just a glimmer of understanding of what's going on, because it's so easy to get caught in your daily routines that one day passes to the next, to the next, to the next, and they all seem like the same, like Groundhog Day.
And it's so easy, and it is the easiest thing to do, and it's also the most normal thing to do.
Is what?
Just being stuck in the grind of the day and just focusing on, this is my next step, this is my next step, and this, you know, everything that's going on. When I take that moment to, and why it's so important to me to take moments to breathe and to connect with myself and check what's going on, you know, the loop that's going on, and sort of ascending to that higher place that you were speaking of, it gives me context, but it also helps to really fire up that neutrality. So my own biases are quietened. So when people come to me and we're having a conversation about my God versus your God, I'm not getting triggered by it. I'm not the one getting up and storming out and saying, you're wrong, I'm right. I'm sitting there. Okay, that's you're welcome to that. In the same way, I'm welcome to mine. And that is, you know, when you talk about who do you want to be and who are you, that's what I want to be. I want to be this neutral, consistent force of love and light. And it is a learning curve. It does take an enormous amount of work, and it's ongoing work, but that's the motivation, that's the drive. And I learned that from my God.
Okay, so I have a question that's really important. I didn't remember seeing that tattoo on your arm. What does it mean?
Which one?
Oh, we have more than one.
This is an arrow. On the top it says love, on the bottom it says warrior.
Ah,
So I got this tattoo when I was in New York. It was my first tattoo that I got when I left my life of banking and marriage and everything else. And I got it because at the time I considered myself a warrior.
I can see that.
To say I'm a warrior. And what I wanted to go, what this depicts to me is that forward movement from a warrior to love. So I have the warrior ascending to love, always moving forward.
The Tao Te Ching says that there's no greater sadness than having an enemy. You know, a warrior suggests that you have to be a fighter against something or someone. And the biggest challenge that I face personally in my life today is the struggle between my fear of conservatives, my anger at their behavior, and my awareness that in the big picture, when the bird, goes up to get a better view, that I'm stuck here in a human drama that's not reflective of God, or it's certainly not reflective of love. If we're gonna, and I don't even know, using the terms interchangeably. So I get, boy, I can get angry at Republicans. I'm so frustrated with these politicians at the state and national level. And I'm so frustrated that 78% of Republicans want Donald Trump to run again for president. I feel like I'm in a Harry Potter book dealing with the Dementors and I think this is not the way I want to leave the world. I don't want to leave feeling like that, and I don't want to do and say things that make it worse. But by not saying anything, you can get pushback that, as you said earlier, your head's in the sand. What do you have to say to that?
My head is not in the sand because I do believe that there's so much chaos right now. Like the world is a hot mess right now. It impacts me every single day. I live in Mexico. My clients are majority in the US. So I am dealing with an enormous amount of anxiety from these clients that have the same concerns that you have. My clients are Republican, Democrat, they're vaxxers, anti-vaxxers, they're on all ends of the spectrum.
Oh.
But me being very realistic, the world is what I see of the world is a hot mess right now. And it is very difficult to have conversations without fury, without any kind of fury. I experienced this in Mexico, although it's a much calmer culture. I went to the store just yesterday and I hadn't been to the store in like a week and a half. Like it was really bare bones, like Hayley Evans, go be an adult. I went to the store and I couldn't get half the things that I wanted because the supply chain thing is in Mexico. Like shelves were bare. And you see it in the US and you're like, that's a US problem. But when I go to the store, I'm like, holy shit, do I need to go on Amazon and start hoarding this stuff because this is a real problem? And then I'm asking myself, well, don't be the hoarder, because remember what happened when the toilet paper thing, we were all like, if nobody hoarded, we'd all be fine. So it is a hot mess. To be in warrior and to be in that place of I've got to fight, I think really is feeding that voice of you're needing to be in protection and do whatever you can to be safe. Every single one of us is dealing with that voice right now, whether you're Republican, Democrat, vaxxer, anti-vaxxer, conspiracy theorist or not, regardless. Every single person right now is waking up in the morning going, how do I best protect myself?
And protect myself from what?
Protect myself from everybody else, from the other side that is wanting to take away my rights and my freedoms. For me, and to find my space in there has really been sitting more with God, but also allowing it to trigger me, allowing myself to go into spaces where I'm like, I'm so angry. I think I could actually breathe fire right now. That has allowed me to identify some really deep-rooted resentments. And I have using, the full moon, and this week I've done probably like 6 full moon ceremonies with my clients to look at that deep-rooted resentment that is driving that fear, that is putting us in this place of, I'm about to be annihilated. I need to annihilate before I'm annihilated. The ease that has come to me from looking at those resentments and being able to be like, whew, that's not true. The resentment at the time was true, but is that the world that I'm trying to create now? And I think every moment that we can have to breathe, to rise up and be in that space of a higher perspective and look at the bigger picture, the question I always ask myself is, what is the world I want to create?
And what is it? What is it?
It is a world of peace. It is a world where every human is divine, is sovereign, is free, is abundant.
Well, do we need warriors in that world?
I think that there are always going to be warriors because that's part of the hero's journey.
Yeah. What's the other tattoo say?
Oh, this one, which I don't know if you can see because it's really hard to show people.
I can see it. Yeah, it's cool.
This is one I got in Norway. Norway is one of my most favorite countries in the world, and I wanted to tattoo. So it's a Norwegian rune symbol. Without the dots, it is the rune for an open heart.
I see. A ruin meaning R-U-I-N, which is an ancient symbol.
Yeah.
R-U-N.
Yeah, so it's almost like the hieroglyphics that the Vikings used.
Okay.
So it's for an open heart, and it's almost just a reminder to me, like, open your heart, like relax your heart. And then the 3 above has everything to do with God, creation, energy, forces of the universe. 3, the 3, the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, the Divine Mother, Father, Child. 3.
3.
Yeah.
My favorite number.
So they both mean something immensely to me and a part of my journey. Would I get another one? I do sometimes think I will.
Yeah.
I haven't settled on a design yet. So both of these, I was very clear, and I settled on the design for at least 3 weeks before I got them. But when I sit with God again and I'm like, I think I want to get another tattoo because like I feel like I've just got to a new level and I need to like signify like, hey, another piece of your journey, here's like a storyteller. Like,
okay. So
the
tattoos are signposts then of your journey.
I think they are. And I think, if you talk to anybody that has modified their body, it's a piece of their story. It symbolizes a piece of their story.
Uh-huh.
But now I think my tattoos are heart tattoos. They're moments where I'm like, we don't need to necessarily symbolize that because we're going to run out of space. Keep it in the heart.
There's a big difference between hoarding through Amazon and ordering items that you need and you can't find at the grocery store.
Yeah. It's
Do
a
you
fine
do,
line.
you, well, you don't have to order, 80 rolls of toilet paper. You can, order 2 and order,
Yeah, and I think it's, that's what I'm doing today. I took yesterday to kind of sit on it and be like, okay, let's find balance here. So today I'm going to be putting an order. I'm going to go and check the store again to see if they've restocked. If it's not in the store, then I already have it in my cart at Amazon. I'm going to be like immediately hitting order now, deliver ASAP.
yeah. Are these edibles or non-edibles that you're?
They're non-edibles. And I think
Mhm.
that does kind of, the uncertainty that is in every day, it continues to build. We're not getting a break from it because the supply chain thing really starts bringing into focus. What about these necessities that we need? Okay, toilet
Yeah.
paper, we need it, but it's starting to impact food. What are you going to do when you go to the store and there's no cucumbers? What are you going to do?
I can
Store?
live without a cucumber, but
But what are you going to do when you go to the store
I
and
want bananas.
there's no chicken breast?
Mhm.
Like, that's a tough one, man. Like,
Well, you can order
the
those.
freak out on that is large.
Oh, I agree with you. That's what I'm worried about, is that so much has changed in people's daily lives. And me, who's a peacenik, how much time we have?
We have 6 minutes.
Okay. So I'm a peacenik, as you know, I'm a conscience objector, but boy, you should hear me yell at the television when in dramas. Shoot him, he's gonna kill you, shoot him, you idiot.
I'm such the same as you. Like, I have a legitimate conversation with the TV. It's one-sided.
I said to Ray, last night, I hope this doesn't bother you, but I've been talking to the TV a lot in the 2 weeks you've been gone. And I said, my feelings are right at skin level. And if that's true for me, it's true for everybody, especially people who have far more responsibility than I have. Children, a job that they have to go to because they don't have any money to pay the. So what's going to happen when the supply chain eliminates, the backup eliminates their access to things that they're pissed about now? Who are they going to take it out on? Right now they're focusing on transgender kids. I don't get it. That why, with all the stuff that's going on, why are you got all of these bills in the legislature, not just to make the state more Republican, but picking on transgender kids, especially boys who have transitioned to become their true selves as females. Who else do you have in your sights? How much is it going to take for you to really go into the violence that we're all capable of? We're all capable of violence. Some of us are less likely. Last night there was a character, I think it was called Hyacinth Project. It was about Poland in 1985 to 87 with the gay community. And there was this gay guy who was standing in front of the person he knew was going to murder him. He had a gun in his hand, but he didn't shoot him. The guy walked up, took the gun away from him, and started to drown him. I thought, you idiot.
And I mean, maybe we can in our next conversation really devote it to the mental health, because
we're talking about my mental health or just in general.
Well, I think we're impacted by it. You and me as individuals, we're impacted it. We're not putting our heads in the sand. We're saying, absolutely, I see it. I actually feel it.
I fear it.
I'm doing about it, but there's lots of people that are not doing anything about it. And I feel, at least for me, that's maybe where I need to be a bit more vocal, is in being able to say, guys, can we please take a look at mental health here? Because we're not going to be able to be decent human beings when we're fighting over Christmas presents.
Right.
And you thought the toilet paper fights in supermarkets were bad? Wait until people are fighting over chicken.
Chicken and toys for their children. You're right.
You know, that's where I can go very quickly into, oh my God, the world's a mess. What hope is there? But again, you know, just being able to sit with it and look at my fears really helps me to ease into it. And it's I don't understand it. And I think that's part of the beauty of me, is that if I don't understand it, it's because there's very little love and truth at the root of it. So I probably won't be able to understand it. Doesn't mean I can't comprehend it. I know we have 2 minutes, but sort of leading into our next conversation, I yesterday had a day full of this whole diversity, inclusion, equity movement that's going on in companies right now. And I had 2 clients that were completely just triggered and lost because they had been to their company's diversity, inclusion, and equity training sessions.
No kidding.
One of them,
people loved mine.
they're very different now. I would imagine that they're very, very different from what you were doing.
Really?
And one of them is a global head. He has his own company. It is a global company. He hires around 2,000 people around the world. And he has brought in diversity, inclusion, equity people. And he was completely rattled by it. And when I said to him, you do know that as a white man, if you lost your job, you would not get another job right now. That hadn't sunk into him. He hadn't thought about that yet.
It's true.
It's true. If he, even though he owns a company and has built up a company and is responsible for 2,000 people, he would not be employed right now. He is unemployable.
Tell him if he wants to talk about diversity and inclusion, even on the side, I'd be glad to do it with him.
It's we need to talk about this.
Yeah.
I think what is happening right now is, under the guise of diversity, inclusion, and equity, is exclusion, confusion, resentment.
Oh dear.
But we've got to run. I love you dearly, Brian, and I
love you.
Our conversations.
Ray wants to talk to you next week.
Next week,
yeah,
we're going to be getting into it.
Yeah.
Lots of love to you and Ray.
I love you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.